Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. This week I want to talk about something that seems to come up on the GTR pages at least once a week, and that is usually a question. And that question inevitably is, hey, I'm thinking about buying an R35 GTR and I've got a line on a CBA. Should I get it or should I save up for a DBA? And everybody seems to have their own opinion on this. In this video, what I want to do is I'm going to break down the differences between the CBA, the DBA, and the EBA in case you're new to the platform and you don't know what the differences are, or you're getting close to buying one and you want to know which one you should get. So what I want to do is I want to break down the weaknesses and the strengths, and that way I can help you decide which one is best for you. Before I get started breaking down the differences between the CBA, the DBA, and the EBA, I do want to let you know that for the most part the car is the same, pretty much from 2008 all the way till 2021 where we are now, and I hear that 2022 is going to be the last year of the car. For the most part, you're getting the same car. However, over the years, they did make tweaks to the way it looks on the inside, the outside. They made some tweaks to the engine and the suspension. And this way, what you can do is you can help figure out, which things that you feel you really need, you can't live without, or which things that are nice but you don't necessarily need. And that should help you decide which version of the R35 GTR you want to buy. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start with talking about the CBA. The CBA was the first generation of the R35 GTR. Now, we call it a CBA because that's what Nissan designated the fuel management system that they installed on the ECU. So if you've ever wondered why it's called a CBA or a DBA, we're just referring to the tuning package that Nissan installed on the computer. The CBA was actually the car that managed to beat out the Porsche 911 GT3 RS around the Nürburgring Ring, and it managed to continue to do it for 2 years. So it's a very good car. Dead stock, you're looking at about 480 horsepower and a 0 to 60 time of 3.2 seconds. So even though over the years they did give the car a little bit more power and make it a little bit faster, even if you pick up a CBA, you're not going to be disappointed with that car. The easiest way to spot a CBA is actually from the outside and the exterior. Now, where you want to look is actually right here. This is my car, it's actually a DBA. And I'll talk more about the DBA when I get to that part of the video. But if you look right here, there's daytime running lights, or DLRs for short, and 3 ridges. If you ever take a look at a CBA, there's no daytime running lights and there's only a single bump right here. So if you're looking at a car that doesn't have those daytime running lights, you know you're looking at a CBA. Other than that, the body style really didn't change much. Another way to spot a CBA visually is in the interior of the car. What you're going to want to do is power up the dash. And when you do, in the tack, there's an area that lights up. It's like an LCD screen. On the CBAs, that should be red. On DBAs, they changed the color to blue. The other thing you want to look at is right here in the air conditioning and radio control area. In the CBA, it was actually a gray plastic. In later years, they kind of swapped that out for a dry carbon fiber panel. So that's another way just to kind of visually tell the difference between the CBA and subsequent generations. Now that I've showed you how to spot a CBA, I do want to talk about the CBA's reputation. Unfortunately, the CBA does have a bad rap. If you want to see evidence of this, all you have to do is log on to any R35 GTR fan page on Facebook and ask this question. Hey, I'm thinking about picking up a CBA for a good price. Should I do it or save up for a DBA? Inevitably, you're going to get a few responses that are like, whatever you do, don't buy a CBA, save up for the DBA. Their transmissions are crap, they're going to break, it's going to cost you all this money and you're never going to be able to enjoy your car. I'm going to let you know that all of those statements are completely wrong. In fact, they're probably made by people who don't even own a GTR. They're just regurgitating what they read online from somebody else. Those of us that own GTRs, we know that yes, the CBA did have some transmission issues when it was released, but all those issues have been addressed or fixed by now. One of the issues that the car had was that, yes, all these cars do have launch control. And let me tell you, it's worth it. But when the CBA was released, it's released under Launch Control 1 or LC1. And what it did is allowed the car to launch at a much higher RPM. And this car has so much torque and power that launching at that high of an RPM was literally shearing the gears in the transmission. Now, of course, Nissan figured this out pretty quickly and released LC2 or Launch Control 2, that all you have to do is update the transmission computer and you launch at a lower RPM. So if you're thinking about picking up a CBA, all you have to do is take it down to Nissan, get a pre-purchase inspection or PPI, and they'll be able to let you know which software is loaded on the transmission computer. Now, I do talk about all this when I discussed in my video on how to shop for a GTR. If you haven't seen that video and you'd like to, I'll go ahead and post a banner above my head, as well as leave a link in the description down below. And if you're serious about buying a GTR, I recommend you check it out, because I talk about all the little things you should look at the car when you're actually going to buy a specific one. However, that being said, yes, once you want to check what software is loaded on the transmission computer, in fact, as of today, we're up to LC5. So Nissan has continued to refine the program to the point that they can get you the highest launch power, but with the least likelihood of damaging your transmission. The other issue that the transmission could have on a CBA is, for some reason, the solenoids that move the gears around were installed with kind of a soft metal. So if you're driving around, you may actually lose either your even gears or your odd gears because it's rounded out. Now, fortunately, the fix on that is very cheap. You get what's called TSB clips. They're about $45, and if you're even remotely handy with a wrench, you can do the work yourself. All you have to do is jack the car up, remove the oil pan from the transmission, drop the solenoids, which are right there, pop the clips on, put everything back together, and that issue goes away. However, if you're not handy with the wrench and you're going to have someone else do it, you are going to be paying the GTR tax when it comes to shop time charges. So just be aware, if you're going to go buy a CBA, it's very easy to ask what software is loaded on the transmission and have you done the TSB clips. And if those have been done, I mean, that transmission is going to be fairly reliable, and I doubt you're going to have too many issues. So there it is. That's the bad reputation that the CBA has, and it really doesn't deserve it anymore. Now we're going to talk about the DBA. And I'm going to be honest with you, the DBA is actually my favorite iteration of the R35 Gtr. Now, the DBAs ran from about 2012 to 2016, and in that time they saw a bump in horsepower and 0 to 60 times. The horsepower went up to about 540 horsepower, and 0 to 60 dropped to 2.9 seconds. Now, just as the CBA is referred to the CBA because of the program that was installed in the fuel management of the computer, DBAs are referred to DBAs for the exact same reason. Now, the cool thing about the DBA is they continued to refine the car during the DBA run, and that's where you're going to see different changes based on the year. So if you're looking at a DBA, pay attention to what year it is, because there's going to be some things that may have changed that you may want to keep kind of the older version or the newer version. Now, to spot a DBA is actually going to be very easy. Just as I discussed in the CBA section, the DBA does have these daytime running lights right here, as well as the 3 indentations. The cool thing about the DBA also is when we start to get different editions. This is when we got the black edition, which is what this is, that came with Recaro seats and a carbon fiber spoiler and a black headliner. So to spot a DBA is very, very easy. Like I said, the body's still the same. You're going to want to check out right here. Or if it is a special edition like a black edition, you're probably looking at a DBA. On the inside, as I discussed in the CBA section, the most biggest dead giveaway that you are in a DBA is the screen that's in the tack. It should light up blue. Also, as I said, you're going to want to see the dry carbon fiber here on the stereo and AC control. Another little thing about the DBA that you probably won't notice is that this AV unit right here with all the gauges is actually a higher resolution and will tend to boot up a little bit faster. All of the stuff I've showed you so far is universal across all DBAs. Of course, as I did tell you earlier, Nissan did make changes to the DBA platform during its run. One of the things was actually the taillights. Now, if you look at mine is actually a 2013, and it has individual little LED lights that go around the taillight. Now, in 2015, they decided they wanted to update the look, and they got rid of these little individual lights in favor of an LED ring. So it's a solid ring all the way around. So if you like the look of that, you're going to want to take a look at a 2015 or newer. Another update they made in 2015 was to the headlights. Now, like I said, if you look at mine, I'm a 2013, you can see it's a pretty standard headlight. In 2015, they decided to add the lightning bolt headlights. And what it does is there's an LED strip that kind of comes up like this in a lightning bolt fashion in the headlight. I think it looks pretty cool. If it's something that you feel you need for your car, you're going to want to take a look at a 2015 or newer. In 2014, Nissan made what, in my opinion, was the most significant change to the platform. In fact, it's so significant that depending on who you are, this will determine whether or not you buy a pre-2014 or a post-2014. And that change was to the suspension. Now, up until 2014, owners of the car were complaining that the suspension was just too stiff for them to enjoy driving. And this is despite the fact that the car has different modes. You could have the suspension in its stiffest mode, which is R mode. You could have it in regular mode, or you could have it in comfort mode. Now, the people that had the car before 2014 were complaining that even in comfort mode, the suspension was too stiff. And I'm gonna be honest, putting the car in comfort mode, unless you drive the car on a regular basis, you're not gonna notice much of a difference. So in 2014, Nissan retooled the shocks and springs so that when you put the car in comfort mode, it was a much softer and smoother ride. So this is where it's gonna depend on who you are. If you're looking for a car that you can drive on the street and is gonna be comfortable for the most part and still be fun and fast, you're gonna want a 2014 and newer. However, if you're more like me and you're more interested in performance and you may take it out to autocross or track events on occasion, you're gonna want a 2014 and older because the suspension is stiffer and more sport tuned. Now, of course, this goes all out the window if you decide to put coilovers or aftermarket suspension on your car, but we're ignoring that for right now. Now we're gonna talk about the final iteration of the R35 GTR, the EBA. Now I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. There is no EBA. Now I know what you're thinking, how can that be? I've seen them, they've got the different front bumper, they've got the upgraded interior. I've seen them, there's EBAs. Well, not according to Nissan. The Nissan still considers them DBAs because they're still running on the same fuel management system as my car, for example. So in that, they're not a separate classification. However, within the GTR community and GTR owners, they started referring to them as EBAs because there was such a dramatic change to the way the car looks both inside and outside. They felt the need to kind of give it a different classification. So if you have questions about particular things that involve things that are unique to that style, or if you're looking for parts, it just made it easier to communicate. Of course, the EBA ran from about 2016 to now, and like I said, if 2022 is the end of the GTR, it'll run through 2022. There's only a slight change in horsepower in that it went from about 545 horsepower to about 560, and the 0 to 60 time remained the same as 2.9 seconds. Spotting in an EBA is actually a very easy thing to do. Although yes, generally the car is the same, they made such significant changes to the way the car looks, it's very easy to spot. One of the major changes to the exterior was the front bumper itself. For example, with mine, as you can see, the DRLs are kind of this oblong shape in this ridged area. In the EBA, they're more of a rectangular DRL and is kind of more in a fake vent. Also, when you look here in the center, there's a little bit of a chrome accent around this intake. On the EBA, they designed more of a chrome V that really stands out. In fact, Nissan now uses that design on almost all of their cars to kind of tie the look of their fleet together. There's also some changes to the hood that kind of made this line a little bit more pronounced that tied into that V that's on the front grille. At the back of the car, they made updates to this rear valence area. As you can see, mine is kind of aggressive and it is nice looking, but on the EBAs, the rear valence actually takes up more of the bumper and is a much more aggressive looking rear valence. As for the interior, Nissan made a major change on the interior of the car. Although yes, the main gauges right in front of you remain the same, they completely redid the AV unit and the air and radio controls to the point that the screen itself is actually a larger screen. They also integrated the radio and air conditioning controls a little bit better. And then down here where the shifter is on my car, there's another carbon fiber area, and that's actually the stereo. In the EBA, they got rid of that entire box area so they could meld the dash and the center console into each other a little bit better and a little bit cleaner. They also moved the start button from right here behind the shifter to kind of more up front, which is just a little bit more comfortable to reach. And there they are, the differences between the CBA, the DBA, and the EBA. But we're not done yet. If you're anything like me, there's still a question in your head. Something you're kind of wondering, and that is, well, if I pick up a CBA, but maybe I like the DBA front bumper, how hard is it to swap them out? And the answer is actually very, very easy. In fact, it's just a direct bolt-on. The only thing you're gonna have to do is figure out how to wire up your DRLs, and that's pretty simple electrical if you're just running it into your running lights. Pretty easy for anyone to do. Now, what if you pick up a CBA or a DBA and you want an EBA front end? Same story, pretty much a direct drop-on. The only difference is because they did change the hood on the EBA, you will have to get an EBA front bumper and hood to make it look right. So in that, like I said, pretty much the car has been the same from 2008 all the way to 2021, and the parts you can swap over. Another thing you may be wondering is like, well, if I pick up a CBA, it starts off with so much less horsepower than the other platforms. Am I at a disadvantage? How hard is it to get to catch up? And it's really not that hard at all. The major difference between the CBA and the DBA when it comes to the horsepower was actually the turbo inlets. Now the turbo inlets are a couple of metal pipes that attach to the turbo and then attach to the intercooler piping. For some reason on the CBA, the diameter of those tubes is actually smaller than the compressor opening on the turbos and acts as a factory restriction. Now, if you go and you pick up some DBA turbo inlets, which are the same size as the opening on the compressor, you get rid of that restriction and you can get your CBA up to pretty much the same horsepower as the DBA or even the EBA. Then of course, if you want to go even farther, taking any CBA, DBA, or EBA up to full bolt-on, which includes intake, exhaust, injectors, fuel pump, and either an EcoTech or a Cobb access port to tune, your CBA is going to be on par with any of those cars running pretty much the same stuff as you. So there's no real disadvantage for picking up a CBA if you're going to modify. In fact, it's even a better way to go because the money you save buying a CBA versus a DBA or an EBA, you can put into performance parts and you can get to your speed goals that much faster. So the question is really, which one is best for you? Well, that's going to depend on what you want out of the car. Like I said, if you're going to modify the car, really, CBA is the best way to go. However, if you want a car that is pretty much stock, you know, you get in it, you drive, it's fast, you like it, but you're not really into turning a wrench, then get whichever car best fits your budget. If all you can fit is a CBA, get a CBA, you're not going to be disappointed. If you have the extra money to get the DBA, might as well go that route. As I showed, you can deal with the issues with the CBA, but if you have the money, why bother with it at all? Or if you have a whole bunch of money, might as well get CBA. It's the newest one, it's got the upgraded interior, if you like that look. I'm gonna be honest with you, personally for me, even if I had the money, I would pick up a DBA. I just like the way they look over the EBA. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go hit that thumbs up button to let me know. It does help the channel out a lot. If you'd like to see more automotive, particularly GTR content in the future, go and subscribe to my channel. You can now follow me on all forms of social media, which include Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. I'll leave links to all of that in the description down below. If you'd like to support the channel, I do have the JD Archer shop. If you go to jdarcher.bigcartel.com, you can see a limited selection of hats, t-shirts, and hoodies I've designed, and there is a new design up there. It is the RB26 2 liters are for sodas t-shirt, and it is live and for sale right now. You can go ahead and check that out. If you have any questions or you feel there's anything I've missed in talking about the GTR, go and post in the comment section down below. I will respond to you. I thank you all for watching, and until next time, forget everything else, focus on the finish line.